So let's say you found the skeleton. How would you tell if it represents you personally? How would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to Matt with Maddie 8, Guns, Maddie, and Steel, which of course is a reference on one hand to a book that I don't particularly care much about, except that it has a cool title, and also it's more explicitly a reference to the D&D game that Maddie runs over on Cheshire Vic's channel, which you should all check out, because it's a lot of fun. I'm there, Maddie's there, obviously, Cheshire Vic is there, Erica's there, her fiance is there, Bent Hovind is there.
Husband now, right?
Oh. I thought the wedding was it last week?
I think it's last week, because I think they're good to play tomorrow.
Okay, then yeah, sure. Husband.
One of those two.
I look, there's so much crap going on, I can't keep track of all of it. Sorry about that, Erica. Yeah. That's actually why we didn't have an Eric with Erica this month, is I didn't even ask. I was like, this is wedding month. I'm not even gonna try. But anyway, so yeah, check that out. It's on Cheshire Vic's channel, Guns, Magic, and Steel. We're on like episode 20 something, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of back content. Each one goes about about 2 hours?
We don't really go over 2 hours. Okay. We all have lives.
Well, there's one major change today, which is that I now have a drink counter, so you guys can see just how many drinks I've taken. I am drinking some soju, which means I have to be careful because I don't know if you guys know, but soju is fortified rice wine, and that fortification is no joke. I am drinking some pomegranate soju right now. I will later be switching to some, ruby red grapefruit soju. I'm drinking it on the rocks because I don't know, I just want to keep it cold. But yeah, let's see. That reminds me, we have drinking rules. So, for those of you who might be new to one of the Tuesday streams, the way Tuesday goes is we have basically I've picked like sort of the bottom of the barrel of creationists in general for my Tuesday streams for a reason. And it is so that I can drunkenly debunk them because we have rules for when you take a drink. It's a drinking game. Now, first I have to say, if you want to play along, feel free to use something other than alcohol. You can...
Might I recommend a delightful lemon ginger sparkling probiotic drink that I will be enjoying.
Oh, well, there's our first drink trigger, which is a Godzilla. So we're going to talk about that in just a second. So, yeah, feel free. And also, if you do decide to partake with alcohol, please be careful. You know your own limits. Don't drink and then go operate heavy machinery or drive a car. I accept no responsibility or liability for any death or dismemberment or bodily harm or damage to property of yourself or others. It's all on you. But with that said, our first drink rule is that if Godzilla or Mothra come by, we take a drink. Next, actually, there's a couple ways I can. One is with a sound effect, like you just heard. But the other one is if someone super chats with one of the channel member emojis that is of Godzilla, Mothra, or King Ghidorah, which are available to channel members, which you can join. Join button down below, starts at $1.99. We'll take a drink for that. Also, the other super chat available drink trigger is if anyone super chats anything to the effect that AIG are a bag of dicks or related, we take a drink because they like to copyright claim everything anyone ever does using any of their footage for anything. And so that makes them dicks. And so we drink if you indicate that. Now, the reason that I do, in fact, ask for super chats for these is because, quite frankly, if I didn't, I feel like you guys would try to kill me with alcohol poisoning. So, and Mackenzie Brown for $2 says, drinking blackberry mead.
Ooh, that sounds delicious, Mackenzie.
Oh, that really does. I haven't had mead in so long. I used to actually live not far from a meadery. And it was a little weird because they had some really good meads, but after finding through some market research that it was mostly women buying their meads, they went heavily into the marketing for women. And so, like, I'm, coming back from the meadery with all these things, like, labeled, like, stiletto and things that have, like, butterflies on them. I'm like, I don't care, it's mead. I'm just drinking it.
Yeah. When I lived in South Carolina, there was like, I was in Charleston, right? So there's a lot of weird fancy stores, and one of them is like a honey store. But they also had mead, and they had like a bar set up in there where you could drink their mead and do a mead tasting. It was super good.
That does sound great. So
really good.
There are also drink triggers actually tied to the show, though. So
right. Yes. That.
Whenever Matt or his host, the creationists involved, because we're talking about Matt, raw Matt here. Whenever one of them says something that's so stupid that it's going to melt our brains, we take a drink to kind of lower that temperature down, because got to take care of the heat problem. We also take a drink whenever they get something that's right, that they're not just quoting from something, right? So if you just quote a textbook or a paper and you get it right because of that, that doesn't count. But if raw Matt here, the man who thought that maybe eating was optional, if that man manages to get a point of fact correct, we will celebrate with a drink. It's not likely to happen. Also, if the creationist tells a joke that doesn't land, take a drink for that. If one of us can successfully predict what his next point is going to be, we'll take a drink for that. Let's see. We also will take a drink for jokes that didn't land, as well as any mention of either the National Socialist German Workers' Party and associated persons, or, because this is Matt with Maddie, also Columbine might be a thing that comes up. And if Columbine comes up, we take a drink for that too.
That's more of a Matt Powell thing, but yeah. Oh, we also drink for stories that didn't happen. Yes,
stories that didn't happen. That's less likely with this guy, raw Matt.
True.
However, he does claim to be the inventor of the kale chip, which I don't believe.
I don't believe you.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, in my mind, like jokes that don't land and stories that didn't happen, those go together.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all the drink triggers, and every once in a while we'll just call a drink just because. Just
because you gotta.
Sometimes I'm thirsty, and when that happens, I actually get super generous with the got something right part.
You do. Actually, also after we've been going for about an hour and a half, you get pretty generous.
Yeah, well, that's true. Look, I'm a nice drunk, right? I'm not angry. I'm nice to people. Anyway, unless you cross a few lines, but that doesn't usually happen. Here we go. Raw Matt was just telling us how explosions, if you set off a bomb in your house, it's not going to clean your house or build a new house. Which,
right, because
that's true.
That is factual. It's technically true.
I believe we drank for him getting it right last time, but here we go.
Okay, good.
So we see evidence of design when we look around. People go, there's no design. There's no design in anything. They're being illogical. We see the Fibonacci sequence and everything.
Okay, we're taking a drink for just math exists, therefore math was designed by God. That does not follow.
Yeah. The Fibonacci sequence is cool, right? But it's like when we see it in nature, it's like kind of an approximation, because it originally was designed as a very simple population growth model for bunnies, under the assumption that bunnies never die. One male and one female bunny is born to every mating pair of bunnies from the previous generation, and that it takes one generation for bunnies to mature from baby to like sexual maturity. And then you get the 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, whatever. And yeah, it's like kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here we go.
Everything. We see sacred geometry, and we even know about the golden ratio.
Okay. First, sacred geometry is just
sacred
nonsense.
Geometry. We're getting into New Age woo.
Yeah, I'm calling a drink for that. Here's the thing about sacred geometry, right?
Yeah.
Humans like patterns.
We do.
Geometry is based on well-defined patterns. And when you combine patterns, you get even cooler, more complex patterns that humans like. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Everything about sacred geometry is patterns are neat, math makes patterns, and then you put onto it some kind of spiritual significance. And like,
Yeah.
thing is, like, look, if like mandalas or things like that help you, like, clear your mind and get yourself set, great, have fun with it. But I'm not going to pretend that, like, the fact that you put a bunch of circles around a bunch of other circles, it has some deeper meaning for the universe.
Right. And like my understanding, like use of repetitive patterns as a meditation tool is great. Like, yeah, do that. That's like probably really good for your mental health. I like to embroider mandalas. That's super good for my mental health.
Mm-hmm.
It's really relaxing. But there's nothing like more magical about that than a different shape or honestly a different meditation technique.
Yeah.
It's just kind of what works for you, boo.
It's kind of thematically sort of like my take on essential oils. Like, look, smelling nice things will help make you be calm and settle down, and that will promote you feeling better and including promote you healing and whatnot. But let's not pretend that there's anything more to it than just you feel better now.
Yeah. It can like be relaxing. And like if you use the same scent over and over, then that scent, like you've kind of started to like trigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, okay, when I smell this, then what I need to do is like calm down, you start to kind of build those patterns. And also just like the golden ratio, right? That it turns out there's like a ratio that humans find visually appealing.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. Yeah. Math is great. That's it.
All right.
It's not magic.
Here we go.
And things everywhere around us. That's a design. You can see plenty of intelligence design when you look around at things. So I don't know why the atheists say there's no design in anything when they know about those things existing.
Okay, let me, Matt, there's a chance that you might watch this because I do happen to know that you've seen at least some of my videos. So I'm going to address you directly. The fact that you can find patterns that exist does not lead directly to someone designing those patterns to exist. In fact, if number realists are right and numbers actually exist as things, they have their own independent existence apart from humans, one, that doesn't require a god, and two, that means that there are complex patterns that just exist in numbers as a result of the basic logic of their existing.
Yeah. And like maybe an easier example is like, why do lots of things form as like spheres or semispheres, right? Like raindrops, right? Why does that happen? And it's because a sphere it's the most energy efficient shape. So if you look at the ratio of the surface area to the volume of different three-dimensional objects, right? So like a planet or a raindrop, right? That's the most energy efficient shape it can take without, in terms of just like self-balancing. So of course we find lots of spheres or things that are close to spheres in nature. Like if you go look at young trees growing, right, especially like pine trees, you'll see like the tree trunk is growing up and you'll see like 4 little young branches coming out of the sapling, and then the next row up you'll see 4 little young branches coming out of the sapling, rotated like by 45 degrees from the one below it, because we're maximizing sunlight efficiency, right? And that looks really ordered and smart, right? But that's also like a survival advantage, and so I like Tesla Rangers in the chat right now. Why does pi keep showing up in nature, huh? Yeah, because it's just the math we use to describe things, and things can be incredibly like all Matt has described. So he has not given us a criteria for what does it mean for something to appear designed,
right?
Because
if we accept Matt's idea here that things as basic as just math existing indicates design, then the question is, well, what would indicate a lack of design? What would that even look like? And it seems like the answer would be nothing. And I think the problem there is, once you have an explanation that can explain any possible observation, you have an explanation that actually explains nothing.
Right. Yeah, and like we as humans can generally tell the difference between a manufactured good and something that appears out of nature, you know? And sometimes the things in nature are more complicated, but that doesn't inherently mean that they were designed.
Right.
Some really wacky things can just happen on their own.
Like tornadoes.
And that's really cool. Like tornadoes are bonkers. Did you know that the geometry of a tornado actually has a fractal structure? Right?
I did not know that.
They're really cool.
Nice.
Mathematically, they're incredibly cool.
All right, well, we're getting a little bit more Matt in here. Maybe we can get him a full sentence. That'd be wild.
That'd
be wild.
They magically forget about those things when it's time to debate about the topic. They go, well, that's just coincidence. What do you mean coincidence? It took 40 minutes for a supercomputer running with 705,000 different processors at 1.4 million gigabytes of speed of RAM to stimulate just 1 second of human brain activity.
I have no idea what he's talking about.
I don't either.
This sounds like a story that didn't happen, and I'm taking a drink for it.
Yeah, that's fair. Also, tornadoes exist. Unless you want to argue that every single tornado is uniquely created by God, right? Then we accept that tornadoes happen spontaneously as out of natural processes, and no supercomputer on planet Earth to this day can correctly model a tornado.
By the way, Liz D asked, is RAM speed? And so here's what I'm going to go with. I will allow the creationists to misspeak if they correct themselves quickly enough, right? So I think it's okay for him to say, "Oh, leave whatever gigabytes of speed," and then say RAM, because I speak too. So I try to hold. I try not to hold the creationists to a higher standard than I set for myself, because I mean, quite frankly, these are people who are usually off by 4 to 6 orders of magnitude. I cannot, in good conscience, hold them to the same level or higher than I hold myself to. It's not fair.
Yeah, and I get all he's trying to say there. Like, I'm not going to hold any misspeaks on that against him. All he's trying to say is that a really powerful computer isn't as good as a human brain.
Which, for some things, that's true. For other things, it's not true.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
That's how powerful our human brain is.
Cool.
I mean, it's extraordinarily complex. And this evolved from a bacteria pond scum from nothing.
No. So we'll take a quick drink. So
he also did say something that's technically true. Human brains are incredibly complex.
Oh, that's true. So we'll take 2 drinks. So here's the thing. Bacteria are a separate group. So we'll talk about domains, right?
Yeah.
So when I was growing up and learning about biology, there were the various kingdoms that included things that are no longer even valid taxa, like Protista. And then, Archaea was discovered. And I'm like, oh, well, they're not bacteria, but they don't have a nucleus. But genetically, they're more closely related to eukaryotes than they are to bacteria. And so, as it's settling out, and we're resolving these sort of really high-level relationships in all of Earth's life, turns out that eukaryotes are actually a subset of Archaea. And Archaea and bacteria are sister groups. So it is not accurate to say that humans evolved from a bacterium, because the common ancestor of Archaea and bacteria was not a bacterium, because that is one of the branches away from that common ancestor.
Yeah, cool.
So,
and that's probably something that creationists really, really, really don't understand, is that modern bacteria, or even just modern single-celled organisms, right, look nothing like the universal common ancestor.
Yeah. They've been evolving for 4 billion years or so.
Yeah. So they are, they've had the same chance to diversify from that common ancestor as humans and dogs and, ferns have.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah. And I think that's something that's kind of hard for folks to wrap their head around of like there's nothing that exists today that resembles the universal common ancestor.
Yeah.
And so when they're thinking of like how do you get a bacteria to start with, they're thinking of a modern bacteria. And I know I'm saying bacteria here inappropriately, but they're thinking bacteria. Like how does this just pop into existence out of nowhere? And like, oh, that's because it doesn't.
Right. That no one ever suggested that it did.
Right. Or how would you go from a modern bacteria to a human? It's like, well, you won't.
Yeah. Nope. That ship has already sailed.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go.
And mutated and then went into the ocean and then
Nope. The common ancestor of human bacteria almost certainly lived in the ocean. So we'll take a drink for Matt, just not understanding the basics.
swam around the ocean, and then we had gills, and then we said, screw this is stupid. And we went on land, and we became a walking mammal, and then we said, this land stuff.
Okay. Matt, when your description of human evolution is on the same level as Miss Garrison's from South Park, on the episode where she and Richard Dawkins became lovers after she stopped being a creationist, maybe it's time to reassess your ability to present the ideas of your intellectual opponents.
Yeah, that's like, if the thing that you are saying sounds ridiculous, double check that you understand that that is what is being said.
Yeah. So I will trust that my audience does not need me to explain every single bit of why he's vastly oversimplifying and getting things wrong, because he's not even trying to give this an accurate description. So here we go.
It really sucks. There's still more water. Let's go back. I'm going to turn into a whale. And then boom, they turn into a whale. And then they're swimming around. They go, fuck this. I'm going back on land again.
Matt used up our F-bomb.
No. He did use up our F-bomb.
And also, we're going to take a drink for cetaceans. They never came back to land. That's not a thing that's ever happened.
They're very happy being whales.
Mm-hmm.
Whales and dolphins are happy.
To be fair, that's not something that's happened that we know of. I suppose it's hypothetically possible that we could find a whale fossil of a whale that has adopted land as a tertiary adaptation, like a tertiary adaptation to land or something. I guess it's not impossible. I find it very unlikely.
It's not impossible, but it's very unlikely, and it has not been observed.
Yeah.
Dude, I was recently in South Carolina for a baby shower for me, and we were at the beach, and we saw this, there were two huge pods of dolphins, and some of the younger dolphins were just showing off, doing backflips out of the water, left, right, and center. It was a delight.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really cool.
I will say, dolphins are one of the things that I miss about the ocean. I don't miss much about the ocean, but dolphins are one of the things.
Dolphins are amazing.
Cold in here, and they go back on land, and they morph into monkeys.
Nope. Cetaceans are not the ancestors of monkeys.
Monkeys.
Humans are dolphins is a new take. I have not heard that take. We're taking a drink on that one.
Yeah. Dude, I want to go swim with the dolphins. I want to be adopted by that pod.
And then the monkeys go, you know what? This climbing on tree shit ain't for me anymore. I need to learn to talk. And then they start sign languaging to one another.
Nope. Current consensus is not that language first developed as sign language. Take a drink.
Drink. Yep.
It's more likely to have evolved vocal signaling that's common to primates. Now, could it have been accompanied by some signing? Possibly, but it looks like it primarily evolved from vocal signaling.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something we see lots of species do vocal signaling today. Mm-hmm. It's not that hard to draw the lines between okay, cool, as the brains get bigger, that vocal signaling gets more complex as more complex ideas need to be expressed.
Yeah.
You know?
One important thing that I think is we should take note of is there are no natural languages outside of deaf communities in which signing... Also, I pause when Matt is flipping us off. So that's always fun. Anyway, there are no natural language outside of deaf communities in which signing is an inherent part of the language that you can't leave off.
Mm-hmm.
So language in humans, except for those who literally can't hear, is a primarily auditorily received thing. That indicates that signing probably wasn't the basic version of it, because then you would expect... Right. And also, it can actually be a bit of a pain to get small children to sign, even though they can actually learn to sign before they can learn to speak, because their hand motor skills develop faster than their vocal motor skills. So you can actually get toddlers who aren't quite old enough to speak to use some basic signing. But even then, toddlers don't just naturally start signing unless you spend time specifically teaching them to, on top of their language acquisition. So anyway, here we go.
And they're like, boom, now I know how to talk. Now we know how to talk, and we still have cages of zoos where we go and look at those stupid animals that we're supposedly from. They didn't...
Nope. Humans... No
Drinking.
currently existing animal is the ancestor of humans, except for humans.
Right. Now, ethics of certain animals being in zoos, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah,
right.
It's a conversation I don't currently want to get into, but like, yeah, there are definitely some ethical questions about like keeping great apes in zoos.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
All right, here we go.
They don't take the logic. They negate the logic, and they just look at the science books. And they...
How dare they? Oh, okay, I just want to say, how dare the atheists, in quotes, because it's not atheists, it's people who know science. How dare they look at things like scientific publications to figure out what is well evidenced?
Yeah, so one friend, I assure you that like professional scientists are not relying on, say, high school level science textbooks, right, for their basis of knowledge. Turns out that barely scratches the surface of any field.
Yeah. But
even an undergraduate degree barely scratches the surface of a specific field.
Creationists, especially like the bottom of the barrel creationists, like Canthoven and Matt, they love to bring up textbooks.
They bring up, like, usually it's like for children. Like, this is even high school level. It's like
this 8th grade science textbook. I'm like, I don't care what an 8th grade science textbook says. Like, I do in the sense that I want kids to get a good education, but like, you're not going to convince me that the mainstream of science is big dumb because an 8th grade science book said a dumb thing.
Right. And one thing to keep in mind about especially middle school, high school textbooks is for the science. Any science that's in there has been around for at least like 50 years.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
They are not cutting edge.
It is not cutting edge. And there is stuff that is in those textbooks that has since been demonstrated to be wrong. Right? But what's taught in those textbooks is still capturing, like, it's like they're wrong in the details, you know? Yeah. They're right in the big picture, which is hopefully what the kids are taking away anyway. But it's not the cutting edge. In no way, shape, or form is it cutting edge. And it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to give you a general grounding in how the world works. Yeah.
They go, well, interesting. It looks like the chromosome C fused.
C? You mean 2?
But, so I guess that's what happened. That explains.
Yeah, imagine that, saying, hey, look, this looks exactly like what we would expect if 2 chromosomes had fused. And hey, look, when we look at other grade 8s, we see 2 chromosomes that look like the unfused version of human chromosome 2. Yeah, I guess that is what happens.
Cool.
That
also, please find that in like a high school textbook for me.
Yeah, chromosome 2 fusion didn't come up in my high school biology class, but you know what?
Not mine.
His complaining about the very obvious fusion event of chromosome 2, which he calls C, is stupid enough. I'm going to call it too stupid, and I'm going to drink for it.
Yeah. And, like, okay, so, like, hopefully, to a curious kid, they read about, let's say they read about human evolution in their 8th grade life sciences textbook, right? And they get like, this is kind of cool. I would like to know more, right? You know, and then they can like Google it and find things. So you can find out more information. That 8th grade or even high school, like 8th grade life sciences or high school biology, those are very basic introductions to the basic concepts. And anyway.
Yeah. Well, here we go.
Okay.
If I can find my mouse, there it is.
Means everything to me now. Well, where'd the logic go? Telomeres have a function. You can't.
Telemeters?
Telemeters? Okay, sure, Matt. You definitely know most about science, Mr. Telemeter and Chromosome C.
Yeah, I don't want to I misspeak all the time. It's a thing my brain does where I think I say one word, but then a different word comes out. So I try to be kind and generous with that, but geez, if I said telemeters,
Oh, you just robot a little bit there, Maddie. Could you say it again?
Oh, sorry. I was saying that I misspeak a lot. It's just my brain freezes and something comes out my mouth that I didn't intend to say. But usually if it's off the wall, did I just say telemeters instead of telomeres? Usually I can catch that.
Yeah, right.
Jeez.
Like I said, look, if someone corrects a misspeak or whatever, or it's an obvious just mispronunciation, but okay, you're saying chromosome C, telemeters. It sounds like you don't know what you're talking about.
It sounds like you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And Matt doesn't obviously have a speech impediment, so I'm assuming that it's not a pathology problem. It's a doesn't know what he's talking about problem. Because you have a speech impediment or something, then okay, there's a different kind of way to assess that, right? You gotta take that into account. Doesn't seem to be the case for Matt.
Right.
So
just get rid of a telomere and then telomeres buffer. That they buffer everything. They're the padding on each chromosome inside your body. You can't just take away a telomere and have it fused to something else.
Well, fun fact, the chromosome 2 fusion is a telomere to telomere fusion, and there is in fact a telomeric region in the middle of chromosome 2, which also there's 2 centromere regions in chromosome 2. The kind of thing you would expect if chromosome 2 was the result of chromosome fusion.
Yep,
Weird.
And that chromosome still has 2 telomeres there on the end. Mm-hmm. So.
Yep. So we'll just take a drink for a raw, Matt, not knowing that there is in fact a telomere in the middle of chromosome 2.
Yeah.
They had function to begin with, and they still have function now. And
that's true. Telomeres have function. We'll take a drink.
Yeah.
Fusion area was a functional area to begin with. So they have a lot of problems in that area too.
How is that a problem?
How is that a problem? Yeah, please explain.
Also, it's just I just don't get how that's a problem. Whatever.
So again, you need logic before you need science. Science comes from logic first.
No. Okay, let's pause there because here's the thing: logic and critical thinking skills are incredibly important skills to have, right? But you can also come up with scenarios that are perfectly logical and entirely non-physical, right? Mm-hmm. Entirely this is this thing that this is why I could never be a theoretical mathematician, right? Because I was taking one it was baby's first proof-based math class, and we were deriving the real numbers, right, with it from as few axioms as possible. And so the real numbers are unique in the numbers that we use, and that they are the only complete ordered set, right? Well, can I make a different complete ordered set? Sure, but you end up with weird things like 1 equals 0.
Yeah.
And you can make a world where all of the logic of that math works, right? It's perfectly logically coherent and also completely useless.
Yep.
So you cannot, logic is not the only tool you need in order to come to an understanding of the physical processes of the world around you.
Yeah.
Right. You need a lot more than logic for that. And also to say that the average scientist is lacking in critical thinking skills and logic skills, frankly, I think is pretty laughable. But that's me.
All right.
Just because something doesn't make sense to him doesn't mean it's not actually purely logical.
Right.
Yeah.
Before in ancient Rome, they used logic before they did anything. They knew what atoms were before
So here's the thing. There were atomists in ancient Greek, which then also meant that there were atomists in Rome, but they didn't know that atoms were a real thing. They didn't know anything about them. They didn't know what kinds there were. They just thought that perhaps if you divided water enough times, maybe there was a smallest amount of water that you couldn't divide it anymore. And that was the minimum amount of water that could possibly exist. And here's the thing. That's not what we would call an atom. That's a molecule.
No.
But it's what they call an atom because they didn't know what atoms are the way that we do.
Yeah. And so I'm assuming that when scientists then discovered atoms, they used the word atom because of that tie to ancient Rome and Greece and their philosophers. Which, I love it. Like ancient Greek philosophers had a concept of the smallest something can be and still retain all the properties of that thing. And when we're like, oh, okay, hundreds of years later, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's true. Turns out of everything, we'll call that an atom because that's what they said. Like, that does not mean that the ancient Greeks understood what atoms are.
Yep. They did have an idea that was vaguely similar, though. I'll give them that.
Yeah, and I will say, like, for the time, in thinking of remembering that science is standing on the shoulders of giants, someone had to have that thought first.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty impressive thought to have first, Like to be able to think about the universe, think about the world around you enough to, like, what is the true nature of things? Like, that's really cool. And that's, like, like an intellectual, like, step forward. The same thing, like, oh my goodness, only, like, what, 2 or 3 cultures on planet Earth independently developed the mathematical concept of a zero. Some of these concepts are really hard to come up with.
Yeah,
not
zero,
many people do it.
Zero is one of the hardest concepts that humans ever came up with. It's only happened a few times.
So the Babylonians could do trigonometry before they had a concept of zero.
Yeah.
And this blows my mind. Anyway.
All right, here we go.
So we know that atoms exist because they used logic to figure it out.
Nope. That's not how we know. We'll take a drink. Then we'll
take a drink.
You don't have to say, we're related to monkeys 99%. Really go on a date with one.
I'm going to call it a joke that didn't land. I'm just going to hit 7.
Yeah.
Take one out, dress her up like a human, put her in a wig, and go somewhere. And just say, come on, everybody, she's just 1% different than us.
I mean, honestly, I'd probably have a better date with a random monkey than I would with where I'm at.
True. Also, I wanted to jump back to something he said earlier that was very stupid. Just because... So the like ancient Greeks had this concept of an atom, right? They did not know that those existed. That's 2 different things, right? They had like a philosophical concept that was later demonstrated scientifically to be true.
Well,
right?
Approximately true.
Approximately true. Yeah, approximately true. But they did not prove that there must exist a smallest particle, a smallest size of something that has retains all the properties of that thing. They did not prove that to be true. They did not demonstrate that to be true. They and logic, you can't, like you can't get to measurable physical properties of things just from logic. So
right. You can get to good ideas that then now need to be tested.
Yes.
It'll never work. They'll laugh at you. No one's going to dance with that stupid monkey. Come on, that's not logical.
Why are we being so mean to monkeys? I would dance with a monkey.
Yeah, I would dance with a monkey. That sounds like first of all, that sounds like a great way to make friends at a party.
Mm-hmm.
Bring a monkey.
Yeah. Well, as long as the monkey remains well behaved.
That's true. Bring a well-behaved monkey.
Could also be a great way to make lots of enemies.
Listen, depends on the day.
Yeah, it's going to go one of 2 very extreme ways.
Yeah. You up for a gamble? It's going to be an interesting night. But saying we're genetically very closely related to chimpanzees, I don't like his logic is bad here. You know what I mean? For as much as he's claiming like atheists are bad at logic. Like why is the logical conclusion from the statement that like genetically chimpanzees are our closest relative?
Therefore, you should date them.
Therefore, you should date them? No, like they're still a distinct species.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, as far as logic goes,
Like,
I don't see how that follows.
I don't see how that follows.
All right, well,
Yeah.
let's see what else. We're going to get something from the host, so maybe that'll be interesting.
Ooh, yeah.
Exactly where the practical utility is of, you know, people considering that there's this could be this God, right? People need to consider this. Like you guys in the audience, a lot of atheists, I can see them in the audience. Like you have to consider that. Think about the implications.
I'm just going to drink for conflating atheists with anyone who understands science well enough to know how stupid this is.
Yeah.
Of this, if what Matt is saying is true, right? If evolution is not true, and you don't know that it is, right? So be more agnostic at least. At least start with that point.
No, I do know that it is, but I can
I do know that it
imagine
is.
not knowing that and being on the fence.
Sure.
So I've been there. I mean, I can just remember being.
Yeah.
Like you don't be so sure that it's true. And then from there, you should realize, okay, if evolution is it might not be true. So there could be a God. And then
there could be a God either way.
Whoa. Sorry. Yeah, if evolution is not true, then there could be again, that's for a couple of guys trying to talk about logic, please.
Yeah,
please be better at it.
Call that a drink on that one.
Oh, yeah.
Turns out that those are largely unrelated questions, and one can be true and the other false, or both true or both false, all at the same time.
Yeah. I say this every single stream, Dapper, but again, the majority of people on planet Earth who are scientists, right? The majority of scientists on planet Earth practice a faith of some sort or another. Also, the majority of people of faith, and specifically the majority of Christians, accept old Earth, Big Bang, and evolution is true, right? So, anyway, I don't know why. Also, you stopped on it. He's got crazy eyes in this frame.
Every single pause frame on this episode has been amazing.
Been just chef's kiss beautiful.
Seriously.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
If there's this God, that means you're the creation of a God. That means you're property. And I think
Actually,
that doesn't follow
does
either.
it?
No.
That doesn't follow either.
I'm going to take a drink again.
No. Yeah, that doesn't follow.
I can make something and then give up any property rights to it. That's a thing I can do.
Well, also, Poseidon is not a creation deity, but it was still a deity, you know?
Also, he's not the owner of all horses, even in Greek myth, even though he made the first horse.
Yeah. So this idea of creation leading to ownership is one, like, actually, please show me how that's biblically supported. Please and thank you.
It can occur in like property law, right? Like copyright laws like that. You default to owning a thing because you made it. But even in cases like that, you can opt to give that up anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, like, in the Bible, right? So if we're gonna just jump to like Christian, like, if evolution is not true, then God exists, and specifically the God that exists is the Christian God, right? Then please show me in the Bible where God claims property rights over humans.
Well, if we start talking about that too much, then we're gonna summon like James White, and I don't want to do that.
Okay.
So we got to be careful.
Is he like Beetlejuice? If I say property rights 2 more times in the
well,
mirror,
if you talk,
is he gonna appear?
if you spend too much time talking about whether or not God had ownership over humans, James White will show up with a copy of his book, The Potter's Freedom, in hand.
Okay.
Tell you about why, yes, God absolutely owns you.
Okay, well, that's silly. Okay. Anyway, continue.
About that, you're just this property of the God. That means you better be afraid of the God. You know, the God could judge you. The God could just rule over you. So
I will say, it does seem to be reasonable to say, if you are in fact the property of a God, then he probably would get to do whatever he wants with you. So yeah, that finally we got to something where the first part,
the if-then statement,
right,
does lead. Yeah.
After like 5 fake if-then statements.
Yeah. So Yeah. Goodness gracious.
That's something to consider, everyone in the audience.
You know,
Go
our
for it.
Father. Yeah, exactly. I think that our Father in heaven created us. We're his children. He doesn't want us to fail, so he's going to accept us how we are.
Are we his property or his children? Because most parents
Different.
wouldn't claim to own their children.
So I will say in Bible, there's definitely a lot of children being property of the parent until they're adults.
Okay.
You know, he wants us to be with him. He's not going to create an impossible manner. He's not an evil person. Matter of fact, even when he intervened with people, today people go, well, where's God? Why do bad things happen? I don't understand. Why doesn't God intervene?
Okay. We're just going to jump over to the problem of evil.
Yep.
We were just
right into it.
Just right into it. Okay.
I want to know
what. This isn't
what
as bad as the whiplash we get from Matt Powell, but
True.
like, holy whiplash, Batman.
I want to know what Matt's primary theodicy is. I'm curious.
Okay, let's hear.
Intervene. Well, when he did intervene, you said he was evil. Now that he doesn't intervene, you say that he's evil.
Okay, so his main theodicy seems to be that you think it's evil when God does things like kill literally everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so, therefore, you should not have as a problem, why doesn't God intervene to specifically stop certain evils, which could be stopped without killing literally everyone?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take a drink first. The worst theodicy I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's really bad. Also, like, let's take the story of Jonah for a minute, right? God tells Jonah to go preach to the people of Nineveh, tell them, you guys are not following God, you blah, 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 you need to change your ways, right? And Jonah's like, hell no, I'm not going there. I'm getting on this boat. And then God's like, Jonah, I told you to do shit. And then the people on the boat are like, did God tell you to do shit and you didn't? And Jonah's like, yeah. And they're like, cool, man, we're throwing you overboard. So they throw him overboard. He gets eaten by a whale so God can have a nice chat with him. And then the whale spits Jonah back up. And Jonah finally, reluctantly goes and preaches to the people of Nineveh. And the people of Nineveh are like, oh my God, we're so sorry. We didn't know we weren't behaving correctly, right? Now we will. And there was much joy and celebration, right? Like,
yay.
But like, there's a story where God intervenes and the majority of people were like, this is a great idea, you know? Okay.
Also, Dragon Spartan 90 said, you only have two choices, inaction or 99% genocide.
Yeah, those are the two choices. There's two wolves inside of you. They are.
Inside of God, apparently.
Inside of God. Inaction or genocide. That's his only choices. Those are the only tools he's got.
So you can't really win with the arguments that they're posting because they're never going to be happy.
Okay, look, I'm not going to go out here and say that I think there's a great winning theodicy, but my goodness, there are better ones.
Yeah, for me, like, the problem of evil is it's almost one of those things that's like, even outside of a religious context, like every human kind of needs to wrestle with at some point in their life, you know? And like, I don't know, I don't think there's a correct answer, you know? I don't really think there's a correct answer, right? I think it's just kind of what it's a thing, it's a question that you ask, you sort of have to, and it's almost, you know, the answer you come to isn't as important as the asking the question in the first place.
It's the journey, not the destination.
It's the journey, not the destination.
All right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
You see what I mean? There is, of course, morality exists. Everybody knows that what things are bad because they wouldn't teach their kid, their very own kid, that do whatever you want. There's no such thing.
Well, there are things which it's pretty easy for everyone to agree on. Like, it's bad to just walk into town and shoot some random person.
Yeah, murder generally considered
bad, right? However, there are also things where people can, in good faith, come to different conclusions. For instance, have you ever read those Reddit stories about people who quit and how that like came back to bite their company they quit in the ass?
Yeah, those are really satisfying.
So sometimes it's something as simple as like they're the only one who knew the password to the computer that has the customer records or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it right to withhold it from the boss who treated you poorly? On the one hand, you could argue that like they own that data. It's on their the server that they own or the computer that they own and whatnot. So
Yeah.
they do have some right to it. And on the other hand, you could say that they didn't have to treat you so badly, and you don't work for them, so they're not going to pay you for giving this information over. And the thing is,
Yeah.
people will, in good faith, come to different conclusions about what the moral thing to do. And some people will conclude that either option is fine, morally speaking. Some people will say, no, I think you're morally obligated to hand over the password. And other people will say, no, I think you're morally justified in withholding it. And that's okay. But what it does mean is that outside of the really big, obvious things, there actually isn't a whole lot of agreement about morality.
Well, and like also, even if we're thinking about like murder, people will debate about what murder means.
Oh, yeah. Because
you know,
most people have circumstances under which they would say that a homicide is justified.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you're looking like across cultures, you know, it might be like what is wrong is to kill someone within your community, but someone outside isn't afforded those same rights, you know? Morality is incredibly dependent on culture and context. And so there's not, I guess I'm about to say there's not universal morality. And that's a pretty, I guess I can't prove that, but that's just experientially.
Here's something you can demonstrate.
True.
Humans do not have a innate sense of morality that allows them to agree on all aspects of morality, and there is in fact a lot of disagreement. Yeah. Whether or not that there is an objective morality is a separate question.
Yeah. I would argue that even if there is an objective morality, because all communication from one human to another is subjective, whether or not that objective morality exists is inconsequential, because we'll still have subjective opinions on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's me.
Just go have fun. That's all life is about anyway. Nobody would teach their kid that because they know. So when they tell you they don't know, they're lying to you. And they know deep down morality is real and it really exists. They just want to pretend.
I mean, no matter what it is, it's a thing. That's a concept that really exists. So, you know what? I'm thirsty. I'm going to give it to him. It's true. Morality exists. We just happen to disagree about what it is and what it says.
Pretend it doesn't, so they can live the life that they want.
Okay, we're also going to take a drink for atheists. Just pretend that morality doesn't exist. That's not broadly true. It might be true of some of them.
No, but I mean, it also feels like it's true of a lot of Christians. You know what I mean? Like your answer to the question of does a God or God exist doesn't really seem to have a huge effect on what we would generally consider an individual's moral and ethical behavior.
Yeah. Oh, look, I've known some great Christians and some absolute horrible people who were Christians.
Yeah.
Turns out that just believing in God doesn't make you moral, and just not believing in God doesn't make you an amoral nihilist. Yeah.
Because, like, as much as I kind of hate that this is true, but I won't subject someone else to a no true Scotsman fallacy, both Kenthoven and I profess to be Christians, right? And I find his behavior abhorrent and immoral and unethical and abhorrent. I said that once, but it's worth repeating.
Yes.
You know, and I mean, I think I'm a pretty cool person.
I've
never been to prison, and I've never intentionally cheated the government. I don't think I've ever cheated the government, but I suppose I could have on accident.
Honestly,
anyway.
Compared to the other stuff, that's the least of my problems with Kenthoven.
That is the least of my problems with Kenthoven, but sometimes I avoid saying the terrible things that he's done because I don't want you to get demonetized.
Yeah.
Regardless if there's a God, morality is real because everyone knows what Hitler did was wrong.
All right, we've got our National Socialist German Workers' Party drink.
We do. Also, did Hitler know that what he was doing was wrong? Just saying.
That is a hard question to answer.
Did the majority of like the people in that party that were super supportive of it and thought was like, this is a great idea, did they know what they were doing was morally wrong?
Probably not.
Just saying.
Because it's logical and it makes common sense. There's no even debate on that one.
Well, you know what, Matt? You're on YouTube. Yes, there is. There shouldn't be. There shouldn't be any debate. But there is. And it's the same kind of debate that there is about the age of the Earth or whether or not evolution is true. There's one side that has all of the facts and evidence, and then there's another side that wants to ignore all of that for their own ideological basis. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not saying that creationists are on the same level as National Socialists, morally speaking. I am saying that the intellectual basis of both Holocaust denial and Young Earth are on about the same footing. They're both about denying reality for ideological reasons.
Yeah. I forget who I first heard say this, but I really like this phrase. I'm going to start adopting it. Of this is not a difference of opinions. We are discussing it as a difference of realities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, you can use all kinds of adaptive reasoning and logic.
I will say I do appreciate that Raw Matt is on the anti-Holocaust side, apparently.
Yes, yeah, that is good.
Because you know what? I used to think that I could just kind of expect that, but after seeing how horrible it can get with some of these bottom of the barrel types, I no longer just assume that people have the basic ideas about like ethics, like Holocaust bad, slavery bad. Now that's a question I have to ask, and I kind of resent it, but whatever.
Logic and rationalization that you want, and deep down, if I go, are there absolute morals or are there absolute truths? If I say, well,
those are different questions. Absolute morals, which I think Rahman is confusing with objective morals.
Mm.
So an absolute moral says that in all circumstances, action X is immoral. So, for instance, you might say lying is always immoral. And you might have there are people who actually do take the stance that it is always immoral to intentionally deceive another person or attempt to intentionally deceive another person. I don't hold to that, but if you did, that would be an absolute moral standpoint. Now, if you think that in a certain circumstance, certain actions are wrong and there isn't actually a difference of opinion there, like you might not agree, but you're wrong about whether or not this action is right or wrong in a given circumstance, it is objective morality. So, for instance, if you say it is immoral to lie to someone in order to lure them into a dangerous situation, that might be an objectively morally true statement. But it's not an absolute moral, because there might be other times where you think it is okay to lie.
Yeah.
So, I don't want this to become about philosophy, but it is becoming about philosophy, and I kind of hate that. Oh well.
What do you say to that? If try even play the devil's advocate and say no, well,
is he drunk? I mean, I'm getting there, but is he?
Is that true? Of course, there's right and right. Of course, there's such thing as truth.
Right?
It's true. You have to.
Yeah, I do agree. There are things that are true that exist, Matt. I'll take a drink for that. You got that right.
Yeah, there are things that are true that exist. Sure.
Great. I don't think most atheists would disagree, and I don't know why we're talking about atheists anyway, because the people who disagree with Matt are not just a mass of atheists.
Say that it's true. If you don't believe it, there's no such thing as truth. You can't even say that that's true.
Yeah, and
So,
I've noticed that most of the people that preach these really evil philosophies out there, we're talking people who are preaching Satanism and things like that. Most of those people don't believe in God. I mean, those are.
Yes, most of the people preaching ideologies that don't believe in God or that have a God concept don't believe in God. Host, you puzzle that one out. Good for you. We'll take a drink. My goodness.
Jeez.
Can you believe that atheists don't believe in God? Yes, I can.
That's where that whole atheistic mindset eventually leads a lot of people.
Yes, to denying the God. I can't. Oh, yes. The atheistic mindset does indeed lead to people saying that there really isn't a God out there.
Well, I'm not saying every atheist becomes a Satanist, but I'm saying if you
Oh,
don't believe in a God, if you don't consider that there's, if you don't, I'm not saying believing in the God is absolutely necessary to be moral, but if you're not at least
well, thank you for that concession to the morality of potential atheists out there.
considering the God, that there's a God that could judge you, is looking at your life, observing you, then it might lead you to do this, like have this philosophy of, oh, well, do what thou wilt. Well, and I can do whatever I want. I'm my own God. You know, that's my concern.
Or there could be a God out there who doesn't give a crap about what you do. Or there could be a God out there who's evil. That there is a God that exists does not therefore lead to either objective or absolute morality, nor is it actually good reason for the divine command theory of morality. I don't super want to get into Euthyphro's dilemma, but like,
Yeah.
a God exists does not logically lead to any moral rules.
Right. Yeah.
It just doesn't. You're going to have to do a whole lot more work between those two steps.
There's like people who aren't considering the God thing, they're just going to feel justified in doing whatever they want, like you're saying, because there's not really a clear morality that you can just latch onto, you know. But with God, there's more of a clear morality, you know.
With some gods, but we haven't even begun to argue for the God, say, of Christianity. All we've basically done is say, well, if evolution is poopy head, then maybe God real. Which doesn't follow anyway, but even if it did, it still wouldn't get you to the Christian God. It would get you to, like, Spinoza's God of the philosophers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, an absolute. Exactly. It's an absolute. Nobody's ever saying that atheists can't have morals. That's ridiculous. We're all the same. Of course we can.
You know, Matt, you say no one's saying that, but you say things that seem to imply that that is, in fact, what you think. So, you'll please forgive me if I press X to doubt on you claiming that you're definitely not saying this thing that you kind of do say. But okay.
We're saying, where does morality come from? Where would that come from? It makes no sense to be moral because that's advantageous to evolution. It's
holy crap. So, looks like I am going to have to do the Euthyphro dilemma. We're going to do it after a break and after I down what is left of this soju.
Yeah,
so we're going to call
down
that
your rice wine.
Okay,
and let's take a break.
Yeah, we're going to be right back. And then, my goodness, so apparently we are going to get into the Euthyphro dilemma because, god damn it.
I don't want to.
Well, we have to at this point.
Okay.
All right.
Fine.
All right, hey everybody, we're back. So before we go into Euthyphro, which I don't really want to do, but I think we have to, I'm going to give a quick commercial, which is to say, first, do hit like on this video if you haven't already. If you're new, welcome. Please do subscribe. Turn on the bell for notifications, which sometimes works, I've heard. YouTube's pretty bad with notifications, but also this channel is entirely supported by the viewers, right? It's sort of like TBS, but even more so. So if you do want to support the channel financially, there are a couple very easy ways to do that. There's a Patreon link, and there's a join button below this channel, below this video. Both of them get you access to the Discord server that I have, where I'm actually there pretty frequently and answering questions and talking to people, and we hang out and do stuff. You'll have access to about 10 videos that haven't come out of mine, which comes out to something like 7 or 8 hours worth of content, I think. Stuff that you can just look at. And there are also perks. And on Patreon, you can also get, I believe it's a 15% discount or something like that for pledging on an annual rather than monthly basis. So that starts at only $1 on Patreon and $1.99. So if you do want to support the channel, it really does help because basically, if the channel can't sustain itself, then it has to scale back, basically. So right now it is right at the point where it's supporting itself month over month for the last, I think, coming up on like almost 6 months. So that's great, and I really appreciate that. But yeah, it's always in danger of YouTube just deciding to not promote videos, or heck, they could even shut down the channel or something, and I have to start back over. So those are two, especially the Patreon is a way that can make sure that if something like that happens, I can keep making stuff. I can still put out content for you guys. And if you can't afford it, then don't. Just don't. Like the video, share it around, do that kind of stuff. Anyway, Maddie.
Yeah.
Euthyphro. Who's that?
Euthyphro. It's a Greek dude.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about a Greek philosopher, Plato, who wrote dialogues about his teacher, a guy who I believe is called Socrates. I think that's how you say it.
You think that's how you say that? Did he have a terrible, unfortunate run-in with some tea?
Yes, it was in fact Socrates. All right,
Yeah.
so for those of you who might not know, the main thing that we have about Socrates is basically we're trying to glean real information out of dialogues that Plato, his student, wrote with Socrates as the main character. These are not intended by Plato to actually necessarily be accounts of real things that happened to Socrates, although they usually are placed at various points in what's probably a reasonably accurate, like, biographical overview. And so the Euthyphro dilemma comes from a dialogue that Socrates has in Plato's writings with a man named Euthyphro, who is famously a very pious man. And so he says Euthyphro's basic idea is what's called divine command theory, which says that what is good is what the gods have commanded for us to do and how we should act. And it is good because they have thus commanded it. And so Socrates asks the question, okay, but is it good because the gods have demanded it, and if they had demanded otherwise, that would change what is good? Or is what the gods have commanded, or have they commanded what is good because they want to command good things upon mortals, so that they have a different standard, an objective standard on which to base this morality? And the problem with the Euthyphro dilemma is, if it's the former, if whatever it is that God or the gods have demanded of us is essentially arbitrary, and they could have done anything else, and that would have become good, then what is good is fundamentally arbitrary, and therefore there really isn't any objective basis for morality. There's someone who might stand in judgment over you, but saying that what they do is good is kind of nonsensical, right? Good doesn't really exist in that version of the divine command theory. Now, the other option, though, if there is an objective standard that the gods are adhering to in giving their pronouncements about morality, then technically speaking, the gods commanding this is superfluous, because what's actually important is the actual moral standing standard that the gods are adhering to. And what that means is there's two options for divine command theory for morality. Either it's meaningless in the first case, or it's superfluous in the second case. So in all cases, divine command theory comes out as being kind of a silly way to base your morality.
Yeah.
So that's the problem with divine command theory. That's why even most theist ethicists don't actually take the divine command theory very seriously.
Yeah.
At most, a lot of them will say that it's probably the second, that God is enjoining proper behavior because it adheres to an objective standard that exists, whether or not he does, that he also follows. And therefore, we should then try to discover what that is. And thanks God for handing us some signposts.
Yeah.
That is the, like, if you find a theist ethicist, that's their likely take on divine command theory.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. And like I said, there are basically no professional divine command theorists in, like, ethics. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. Anyway, here we go.
Survival of the fittest. You're the strongest, the meanest. You kill, you survive. That's what evolution teaches. It's
All right, well, we're going to take a drink.
No.
So, humans are this thing called a social species. Social species tend to depend on each other to survive, and doing things that are destructive to group cohesion and group survival also reduce your chance of survival. Further, there's this thing called kin selection. It's not necessarily the case that your genes won't spread if you don't breed, because things like nieces and nephews and cousins exist. Also share significant amounts of your DNA. So if you can ensure the survival of your group, the genes that induce you to act that way, which are presumably shared by your close kin, will also be propagated. This is basically the way that insects have become eusocial in the case of like termites and bees and ants. Okay, so you have a hive of siblings. All the workers in a beehive or all the workers in an ant colony are full siblings. They have, in most cases, the same mother and father. There are some exceptions, but we're going to simplify it, right? So you have an ant colony. All the workers and all the soldiers are basically full sisters.
Yeah.
Which means that if the ant colony survives and the queen produces new queens and males to go breed with other new queens and males from other colonies, that the genes of the sisters will persist because taken together, all of the new queens and males that the queen can produce will have their genes. And so this amount of pro-social behavior becomes so extreme, the species even distributes breeding as a division of labor thing. Only one group bothers to breed. The other groups can breed or cannot breed only because they're so closely related. You don't tend to get eusocial groups of unrelated organisms. It doesn't tend to work. So evolution.
And also this idea. Go ahead. Sorry.
So whether or not a pro-social morality evolves depends on the social structure of the species in question.
And so this idea that in an evolutionary sense, fitness refers to, like, colloquially what we use fitness to mean, right? Which is like, how often do I go to the gym, right? Right. That's which seems to be what Uncooked Matthew is thinking, right? He seems to be equating those because he said you're the biggest, the strongest. Well, that's certainly not true. Island
dwarfism counters that very neatly.
Yeah, but like plankton are perfectly fit for their environment and are doing just fine, and they are neither big nor strong, and they are also not killing anything.
Sometimes they can kill some things.
Oh, okay. Sometimes they can kill some things.
But that's not part of their fitness. That's just a byproduct of their waste products and whatnot.
Ah, okay. And like, you're a carnivore, so it is true that you have to kill things to survive, but typically not your own species. So yeah, someone does. And so you have to kill things to survive, but like not your own species. It's not like I'm trying to be the best of my species, and that's who's gonna stick it out. No. Yeah, because like that idea of fitness, it's I don't think that word means what he thinks it means.
No. Yeah, so there's the double problem there, which is he's almost certainly misdefining fitness. And also, he seems to think that only antisocial behaviors constitute fitness, which isn't true.
Which is not true. No. Humans are a like hyper-social species.
Mm-hmm.
We do not function as a species if we don't work together.
Yeah. If you like, look, you can find hermits and whatnot to do like a subsistence farming, but you look at their standard of living, and they tend not to live very long or very well.
Right, and also how successful are they in reproducing? Right.
Very poorly. In fact, actually, I remember there was a relatively famous example in Russia where not that long ago, a group of old believers, and by group I mean literally a mother, father, and their kids, were found to have been living for like decades on their own out in Siberia. And they didn't even realize that like Russia still existed because they believed in some sort of doomsday-ish prophecies from some old believer weird groups.
Yeah.
And they did not do well after being reintroduced into society. I believe all of them died within like a couple decades or so. Yeah, it didn't work out very well.
Exact opposite of morality. You don't want to have morals when you're got to eat. You don't want to go kill something. You don't want to have morals when there's an enemy that's walking around taking your food. You want to go.
Even like lions have an etiquette, which is basically the forerunner of morality, around who feeds when and how much.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it might not be a hierarchy and a system that you would want to live under, but it's not just a bunch of chaos. I'm just taking a drink for raw math. It's basically getting all of animal behavior wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And
if you saw like somewhere in the animal kingdom of an animal going around like stealing food from all the other members of its species, to the point that they weren't allowing anyone else to eat, right? That animal would probably be killed really fast, right? Because they're not behaving correctly.
Yep. In fact, actually, I mean, there are observations of like chimpanzees killing each other because one of them was not acting in a pro-social manner.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, or in somewhat slightly less severe cases, forcibly castrating other chimpanzees for not acting in a pro-social enough manner.
Damn.
Yeah, chimpanzees are kind of brutal that way. Yeah, just grabbing and yanking off the whole thing.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Chimps are scary.
They really are.
Back to work. So morality is contrary to beneficial for what we would want. But
funny how society doesn't just collapse in a heap of unfitness then, Matt.
Yeah. Yeah. Funny how humans are actually being pretty successful in terms of breeding.
Weird.
So I like to tell people, so now you kind of messed with evolution a little bit. You kind of
you can mess with evolution, just don't mess with Texas.
Yeah.
You've thrown some curveballs, maybe giving us something different to think about. Now, why does that prove that the Bible's real, or the Torah, the Brahi faiths, or the Quran? They all use the Torah. They're all using the original scripts. And
what is he even talking about?
I'm not sure. I'm honestly having trouble following him.
Okay.
Because I think it's okay, so something evolution, but what does that have to do with scripture? And I'm like, yeah, that's a good question, buddy.
Yeah. Okay, well, maybe he'll bring this into a way that makes some kind of sense.
we actually can use deductive reasoning to figure out if they're true or not, because we can look at reality and see now if they actually correlate to what's in those. And if they're wrong on even one thing, then we know it's wrong. Like,
okay, so if a scripture is wrong on even one thing, then we know it's wrong. Okay.
Okay.
The Bible says that the way that you can get your your farm animals to be stripy is to have them drink water and mate near stripy sticks. We know that's not true. So I guess the Bible's wrong?
By your logic?
I mean,
let's see what he has to say.
for example, we can test and say, where does genetic diversity come from? We know that it comes from the Fertile Crescent. We know that that's where...
No.
What? No, take a drink. Genetic diversity comes from this thing called mutation.
Mutation, yeah. And also, if what he meant to say is geographically where is there the most genetic diversity, I'm going to assume he means amongst humans, then that should be sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah, it's actually like Ethiopia specifically.
Yeah, not the Fertile Crescent at all.
Nope. Okay, well, we'll take a drink again for even with the most charitable interpretation, he's like double wrong still.
I'm out of my happy lemon ginger drink. I'll have to switch to water.
Ooh, okay.
Ooh.
And came from exactly what the Bible says. They said, well,
not
look,
sober with you.
It is more fun this way.
It's way more fun.
That's where Cro-Magnon and
Cro-Magnon
that sounds like a bad spin-off from Mystery Science Theater.
He's trying to say Cro-Magnon, but
Okay.
Neanderthal come from.
No, they don't come from the fertile. Okay. Oh my goodness, I'm taking another drink.
Just to steal yourself? No, yeah, because Neanderthals originally evolved same place Homo sapiens did.
So Neanderthals spread out from Africa. So the first place they do hit is the Middle East. We do have Neanderthal remains from the Middle East and then up and west into Europe. So there is some truth to that because the ancestors, the European Neanderthals, would have had to go through the Middle East to get there.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Neanderthals didn't evolve there.
Yeah, so they split off in Africa.
Yeah.
Now they did evolve some of their cold weather adaptations, like in situ, as a population. But Cro-Magnon, which by the way, not a term that's used in the literature anymore, because Cro-Magnon is just modern humans. There's no reason to make the distinction. But also, the first modern human remains do not come from the Middle East. They come from North Africa. Now, yes, there is a question, why don't they come from Eastern Africa, like Ethiopia? And the answer is, don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. There isn't currently a good answer as to why the epicenter of genetic diversity is in Ethiopia, but the earliest identifiably modern human remains are from North Africa. There's probably some kind of gap in the fossil record there. That's the most likely explanation. Why is there that gap? I also don't know. Will it ever be? I hope so. That'd be nice.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
But under every single situation that could possibly explain these data, what you don't get to is humans came from the Middle East.
Right.
In fact, if you look on my channel or Dan's channel or Erica's channel, we did a three-way collaboration debunking a section of a documentary called Dismantled, with the man separated out so that it's talking about humans or whatever.
You guys had fun filming that. I enjoyed watching those.
Check that out. It's 6-part. It's fairly long. Each part gets progressively longer. But we do have a whole big thing about the out of Africa versus out of the Middle East. And it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Also, the chat is cracking me up with Cro-Magnon puns right now.
Cro-Magnon is Magnum PI's older brother. Yes.
Condoms for birds.
Okay, here's the thing, though. Can't use condoms because, most birds can't use condoms. Crows can't, because crows don't have penis. So
it's unfortunate.
Although, interestingly, having a penis is actually the ancestral condition for birds. It's just that most birds lost it.
Huh.
So penises are common in, or they're ubiquitous in paleognaths, which is like your emus, ostriches, cassowaries, tinamous, rheas. They're also in Gallo-Ansere, which is like your geese and ducks and chickens and quail and grouse. But in Neo-Aves, which is everything else is a bird, no penis.
Huh.
Yep, but you do the phylogenetic bracketing, and it means that the common ancestor of all birds almost certainly have one.
Gotcha. Yeah.
What are the coincidences, right? Okay, we'll give them that one, right? So coincidence one.
Oh,
well,
okay.
how about where the Bible says that
I mean, it's not a real coincidence, but sure, thanks.
Sure.
humans are all 99.9% related because the Human Genome Project found that we're all related.
Breaking news, members of the same species, genetically similar, more at 11.
More at 11.
You know what? I'll take a drink. It's technically
I'll take a
true.
drink for technically true, but also does it prove anything?
Like, so what? This is what we would expect, yes.
Yeah.
The Bible says that we're all related. Exactly.
Yeah. So much stuff like that is in the Bible that totally matches, you know, what's happening in real life.
Listen, only if you're squinting and on a galloping horse 20 yards away does it match, you know?
Right? Like, the Fertile Crescent, Ethiopia. Look, it's within like 5,000 miles or so. It's fine.
It's fine.
And
all members of the same species are related, therefore everyone on planet Earth came from two humans. It's like, no.
That's almost the same thing. Almost.
Not the same thing.
Exactly.
Okay, so Aging Reverse asks the question, which God is the real one? How do you decide which religion, morality to follow? There's the question.
There it is. That's what we're on right now.
Yeah.
We want to use deductive reasoning. So
you haven't done... I'm going to take a drink for how bad this is. Okay, here's the thing, right? You are on that.
Mm-hmm.
But the entire string of getting to God doesn't make sense, right? So you start with, well, if evolution is big dumb, therefore God. If God exists, then morality, no. Also, if God exists, it must be my God. Convenient for you, but also...
Convenient for you.
No, not how that works.
And really what he was arguing earlier was like, if morality exists, therefore God.
Yeah, well, we're getting it both ways, right?
Yeah, we're getting both ways.
It's... You haven't even begun to argue for Christianity, Matt. You've had really bad arguments for God, and none of those get you to Christianity.
None.
We want to go over and say, okay, let's read the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita.
Well, if you've read one, then you definitely read the second one, because the Bhagavad Gita is a section of the Mahabharata, and I'm going to take a drink, because it's like saying, well, if you read the Bible, and then you read Leviticus, you covered it already, man.
Yeah.
These are the Indian tribal texts, and they say that gods flew down from heaven, and they conquered mankind, and they lived...
No. Just taking a drink. I'm gonna keep going.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that creation myth, but
it involves more of things like the dream of Brahma becoming reality, because Brahma is the foundational basis of all reality. And then the gods are emanations from this dream, and then they create various aspects of this world, and they rule over people. And then, yeah, sure, there are avatars and like demigods who get involved in wars and things, but it's not the gods like coming down from heaven and smiting people until they get put in charge. That's not the thing. The Vernal Beat says the racist use of tribal, and so the thing is, the word tribe in English doesn't really mean anything anymore, except group of people who are organized in a way that does not closely correlate to the way that modern states organize themselves. And like originally, it was actually a technical term for a particular like social grouping in Germanic communities, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, it's expanded to mean a whole bunch of things. Like the things that, like Germanic tribes, bear very little relation to, say, Native American tribes. And very little relation, and both of those bear very little relation to things like what we call like African quote-unquote tribes. So it's a troublesome word because it basically just,
Today, like the Cherokee Nation would like equally refer to itself as a nation and a tribe, right? Like, though the formal language is the Cherokee Nation.
Mhm.
But then, you know, these are like Bureau of Tribal Affairs or something like that. So it's yeah.
Well, one of the problems is that nation actually is easier to define than tribe, and it's still a tough thing to define.
That's true.
And not all tribes would constitute nations. Some things that are referred to as tribes do constitute nations.
Constitute as nations. Fun fact, the Cherokee Nation just signed a treaty with the U.S. Like Bureau of Transportation, so that the tribe is going to now be responsible for its own infrastructure.
Nice.
Like roads and things, which is
aren't
really
they also
cool.
supposed to be getting some congressional representation?
Yeah. We're supposed to get it. So the Cherokee Nation there's established a non-voting member of Congress from the nation, sort of like Puerto Rico or DC has. That was established in a treaty with the federal government in the late 1700s, and it's never been we've never been allowed to appoint. So, hi team, I'm an enrolled member of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. It's a thing. And so we've always supposed to had one, but they've never been allowed in. You know what I mean? And I'm not sure the tribe's ever actually tried to nominate and send someone.
Mm-hmm.
In recent history, we've tried to nominate and send someone, and they were told to go away. But I don't know. We're doing it. The Chief Hoskins has appointed someone to be our representative. We'll see. I'm not sure exactly when they're supposed to start. It might be after the midterms, you know what I mean? When the new Congress members would come in.
Yeah.
So that would be I guess January or March.
All right. Well, this is not super on topic, and I do want to know more afterwards. So
but
I think
it's more fun to talk about.
Well, okay, yeah, but that's the thing is,
okay,
so easy to get off, do anything but listen to Ramat.
Hundreds of thousands of years, and they had cities in the air and cities on the ground and cities under the ocean.
Oh, the gods, right?
And they taught man how to do everything: cook and hunt and write. And they taught him a language. And then they fought each other in wars. And
at this point, he's being reasonably accurate. So I'll take a drink for getting this basically right.
Well, yeah, it'd be like if I was suddenly going to describe Greek mythology off the top of my head, right?
Yeah.
You'd
get the broad strokes of it.
I get the broad strokes of it. I think it's really cool. I'm not super well studied in it. But I know the basics, and but it, without notes, if I was to describe it off the top of my head, it would be all over the place.
The
stories just get crazy, and then they say that Earth goes through cycles, and it cycles itself out every so often, and then boom.
That's
and
true,
then the Norse said that the one planet was a frozen planet, and then there was a fire planet, and then they went to war with each other. I
mean, look, I'm not a scholar of the Mahabharata, but I don't remember any of that. So
he said he transitioned. He said the Norse say.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. That's also not really true, but sure, whatever.
Sure.
And then the gods spewed man out of their mouth. Native Americans say that lightning struck and created two brothers. One brother took over the underground people, and the other brother was on the surface.
I'm going to complain for a second.
Go for it. First, should we drink?
Yeah, let's just enjoy a drink there, team. Hey, team, this is your reminder that Native American cultures are not a monolith.
What?
Right? What?
You mean you can't just say the Native Americans? All of them believe this
all
one
of
thing?
Them believe this. It's no, turns out
an entire 2 continents worth of people might have some diversity.
Yeah, there's a lot of diversity of belief and folklore and myth and creation myth. And yeah, we'll just a reminder that's so I don't know what tribe's creation myth he's describing, but I know it's not Cherokee, so I don't know.
Wait, are you saying that Ramat might be wrong, that the Native Americans all believe in this story about lightning twins?
Yeah, and that's not Aztec, that's not Maya. I kind of know a little bit about those. Yeah, no, it's not. That's not it.
Okay.
Guy.
Next, we'll hear about what the Europeans think.
Yeah.
Dwelling, so that's where demons came from. They don't really have anything that you can test. But when the scripture,
I'm just gonna drink for the unintended irony of they don't really have anything you can test. But here, let me talk about the flood.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, you know the drinks hit differently when I can see how many of them there have been.
Yeah, how many have there been? Because I'm not like
we just hit
I'm watching
40.
chat. We just hit 40. Okay.
This is why I'm not doing this with shots. I would literally die.
You would be dead, even though you are a dinosaur and have a very large liver. So
yeah, but the thing is, unlike humans, most other animals don't actually have a really efficient alcohol like elimination biochemical pathway. Humans actually have, like apes actually have specific mutations that allow them to process alcohol through their livers extremely rapidly compared to most animals.
So you're saying that what makes us human is beer?
Oh,
that's what I heard you say.
Well,
yeah,
but that's also true for the other apes. So it's actually probably an adaptation to being able to eat fruit that's not so fresh.
Oh, okay, fermented fruit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool ones come up. The Torah, you can see that what they're talking about, the humans being from the Fertile Crescent, like what we said,
which they're not, but okay.
Humans all being genetically
not,
the same.
Continue.
Well, they're not the same, but they are similar.
We're not
being
the same,
a species.
Continue.
Human genetics deteriorating since the
which it's not. We'll just take a drink for that one because we haven't mentioned it yet. But yeah, genetic entropy isn't a real thing. In order to even pretend that it's a thing, you have to do a few things like make a computer program that makes demonstrably inaccurate results when compared to experiment in the real world. I should just take the drink real quick. Here we go.
Take the drink. Yeah.
You have to do things like redefine fitness, which, much as I love Sal, who's sometimes in the chat here, I'm sorry, man, but you can't just redefine fitness in order to make your argument work. That just means your argument doesn't work. And yeah, you also have to do things like pretend that Moto Kimura, the famous pop gen guy who came up with neutral theory, said that positive or beneficial mutations are so rare and of such minor effect that they don't matter at all, so I'm ignoring them. When in fact, what he actually said was, when I include any at all, they overwhelm my neutral model, so I have to exclude them in order to get at the neutral evolution that I want to look at.
Yeah.
So I remember when I first heard the genetic entropy argument and Moto Kimura's work being misused. And of course, the first thing I do was I go look at Kimura's work, because that's what you do.
That's what you do, yeah.
And I was like, oh, so he's completely misrepresenting all of this. Got it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. And it was not hard to figure out either. Like, it took like I think like the top 4 or 5 results on Google. And I was like, oh, this is what you're doing. Yeah, you can't just do that.
Yeah, no.
It's bad. All right, here we go.
Fall of man. We have disease accumulating. We have all people from a...
What does disease accumulating mean?
What does that mean? And also, where is that in the Bible? Like,
I'm just going to take a drink before I start accumulating another disease.
Yeah.
Single female and a single male. The Y chromosome atom and the mitochondrial E.
There you go. He got it. Okay, so we're going to take a drink.
Live at the same time or place.
Mm-hmm. So, the mitochondrial Eve is the most recent mitochondrial ancestor of human. That means that if you go look at your mother, and you look at her mother, and hers, and you do this for everyone, eventually everyone gets to a single woman who was your however many times great grandmother.
Yeah, that was about 60,000 years ago? Longer.
I think you're thinking 100,000.
Yes. Sorry.
You know what? What's an order of magnitude between friends?
Yeah.
It's actually also, I think it's more like 100,000 or 200,000.
Yeah, sorry. I've been my time scales are off today.
That's fine. Look, you're not like a paleontology or a paleoanth guy.
I'm not.
Anyway, I mean, really, I'm not either. But there's a few things to remember. One, that this person is not the only female existing with her. She's also not the only female with surviving descendants. She's just the only female with a currently unbroken line of female descendants. And who she is can change. So, for instance, if some particularly divergent mitochondrial lineage were to go extinct, not necessarily because those people died, just because they failed to consistently have female line descendants, then who mitochondrial Eve is actually shift forward in time to another person. This is not a particular, like, I am the ancestor of all the humans. It's a thing that can change as time goes. In fact, we've actually given this example before with me.
Yeah.
Where it said, when I gave it, it was very hypothetical, but now it's less hypothetical. So, Maddie, if you have kids, which is now less hypothetical.
That is less hypothetical. For
They,
people that don't know, I'm currently 7 months pregnant.
there you go.
There you go.
Those kids will have your mitochondria. Now, if we presume that you have some daughters, and that they go on to have daughters, you will find your own lineage of mitochondrial DNA, which could persist through time.
It could.
If it so happened that your female descendants became the only females to, say, colonize Mars with a bunch of relatively updated males, and then for some reason Earth got blown up,
I would now be mitochondrial Eve.
Yep. That's all it would take.
Yep.
And if for some strange reason the opposite thing happened, where I had a bunch of boys and they failed to, go extinct in terms of the Y chromosome line, and they were the only male group that bothered to colonize Mars, and the same thing happened, I would become Y chromosome Adam for the ceratosauruses that inhabit Mars.
Yes.
I have the problem with Ceratosaurus females are sort of thin on the ground. It's not easy to find a whole bunch of them, so that presumably won't happen, but it could. Ceratosaurus is on Mars, guys. Let's do it. 2022.
2022, Ceratosaurus is on Mars. Love it. Love it.
Right.
Love it.
Here we go.
They all come from two people, exactly like the Bible
Nope.
says. What are the odds that they would all be from the Garden of Eden, from a single male and female?
No one said that.
No.
Even if it were true, the center of genetic diversity were in the Middle East. That doesn't mean it came from the Garden of Eden. That just means that the Bible would have been right about where humanity started, but it isn't. Take it into... My goodness.
The same place in the world, and then they all track genetically. Then we say that...
What does it mean for them to all track genetically? I don't know what that means.
I don't know. All I want to reiterate that Y chromosome Adam, he's older than mitochondrial Eve, right?
One of them is like tens of thousands of years older than the other. I don't remember which off the top of my head.
Okay, because I thought one was like 250,000.
Mackenzie Brown says, wait, do ceratosaurs even have Y chromosomes? Yes, definitely. That's not how all dinosaurs do sex determination, but it's how ceratosaurs do sex determination. So don't worry about that.
Anyway, but most assuredly, Y chromosome Adam and mitochondrial Eve missed each other by lots. Oh, thank you, Tesla Ranger. Tesla Ranger, mitochondrial Eve, 155,000 years ago. Y chromosome Adam, somewhere between 180 and 580,000 years ago.
Big range.
Big range.
So at a minimum, they missed each other by tens of thousands of years.
Right. Potentially hundreds of thousands of years.
Right.
So they're not living together. They were both, I think they should have both been in Africa, but like, they both would have been living in Africa. But
well, the way you can tell is the most divergent both mitochondrial and Y chromosome lineages are in Africa.
Yeah. But again, missed each other by long shot. So
yeah.
Anyway.
All right, here we go.
The chicken came before the egg. It says that God created all things first. He didn't create baby Adam. He didn't create chicken egg, right?
I mean, it doesn't say that he didn't create chicken eggs, but okay, I don't really care.
It says that everything was created in its entirety. That's kind of what we see.
No, it just says that let the ground bring forth. And exactly what that means is left up to your imagination.
Mm-hmm.
We look at we look in the rock layers of the ground. Guess what happens when we go really deep? When supposedly Earth was young, we find no meteorites.
Oh,
What?
okay. I'm going to take a drink, and then we're going to start talking about geology.
Does he mean we find no craters?
No matter what he means, we're going to talk about why this is
Okay.
stupid. So, first, meteorites. When meteors strike Earth, they actually tend not to leave significant amounts of identifiable meteorite hunk. That's actually pretty unusual. It does happen.
They're vaporized upon impact.
Right. Now, there are places where you can, in fact, find like a big old chunk of meteorite. It happens, right? It's mostly iron. Right. But that's the kind of thing that tends to be subducted. The oldest rock on Earth, one, there's not much of it.
Right.
Most of the oldest, like, Hadean age rock is gone. Doesn't exist anymore. It's very hard to find. I think there's some in, like, Canada and, like, some in Australia or something. And, like, that's basically it. So, in order to expect to find this, you would have to have Earth being pelted by meteorites all the time, most of which don't just vaporize when we know they do. And you would have to have a large portion of the Hadean rock still extant, which we know it isn't. The tiny little segments of Hadean rock that we have lacking asteroids is not surprising.
Right.
This is what we expect
like,
from multiple directions. Sorry.
No, yeah, like the reason that the moon and Mars and Mercury are heavily cratered and the Earth is not is because the Earth recycles its crust and also has weathering processes that don't exist on Moon, Mars, Mercury, right?
Yeah.
So when an asteroid hits a body, right, it's the impactor is vaporized for the most part. You can get it not vaporized if you have a really, really oblique entrance angle, but normally it's vaporized.
Good use of belief.
Hey, thank you. And then, but those craters are then weathered, right? So we have a few craters that exist on Earth, right? Like, there's a few under oceans. You know, there's crater. It's out in.
There's one like 6 hours away from here in Arizona.
Yeah, that one.
Sometimes it's just called Meteor Crater, which is like the most
Meteor
boring
crater,
name.
yeah. It is the most boring name. But we don't have many because cratering events become less common after the late heavy bombardment, which was like 4.3 billion years ago.
Yeah.
Anywho.
Which also is after before most of the rock that still exists formed.
Exactly. So almost all, you can think of it as like all of the rock that existed at that time has been recycled and erased.
Yeah, basically.
And so I don't know what Uncoach Matthew here is expecting to find. Like, were you expecting to find in a rock layer a crater? Because even if that crater like existed, it would have been weathered away, right? In general, like you shouldn't expect to see that huge, large feature, you know, that should be weathered away. Are you expecting to find different material? Like it's a nickel and iron, you know? Now you get the iridium layer from like a huge recent impact event, right? But anyway, I don't know what he's expecting to find.
I don't either. We're going to get a little bit more in, and then we're going to call it.
Very confused. Okay, fair.
Meteors should be everywhere. It's what formed Earth. That's not what we see. That's a huge problem for them.
Earth accreting from the protoplanetary disk of the sun is not the same thing as meteors forming the bulk of the mass of the Earth. I'm just taking another drink.
Oh my god. Honey. Okay, so another drink, and let me just explain this really fast. If you take the mass of the Earth, right, and just the mass of the Earth as rocks, right, and pull it all apart, right, and let these like small bits of rock exist far away from each other, right, and then bring them together under gravity, right, the amount of energy that is produced by that bringing them together under gravity is enough on its own to melt all of that into the entire mass of the Earth. Which is why Earth is a fully differentiated body. When we were molten, the heaviest elements fell to the core, which is why we know we have an iron nickel core. and then why we have a silica mantle and crust. I'm going to sneeze. Oh, sorry.
Sure.
Oh, there we go. So the thing he wants to find was liquefied when the Earth came together. This is
pretty basic planetary formation.
This is pretty basic stuff.
Well, that's the problem with raw Matt, is that he doesn't have any basis in even the most elementary parts.
Yeah.
I mean, look, this is a guy who seriously thought that maybe calories were optional for his continued existence.
Breatharianism is weird.
So, on the one hand, it's like, what can we possibly expect? And on the other hand, it's like, dude, you are purporting to be teaching people science and writing books that you think are going to overthrow basically all of science.
Yeah.
You don't have the ability to do this.
Yeah, you can't get the basics right.
Right. No one's going to take you seriously when you're talking about telemeters and calories are optional, and why isn't the Hadean rock full of identifiable meteorites?
Right. Also, as a complete separate thing, I would like everyone to be aware right now that my office has been taken over by an army of baby spiders, and they keep floating in front of my face, and it's really distracting.
Oh, they're abseiling.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Anyway.
I like baby spiders for the most part. Yeah, well, Liz D points out breatharianism is eating and lying about it. Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
Yeah, if you're a long-term breatharian, that is what you're doing. I've heard some of them say, like, well, we don't eat for we need to, but sometimes if we're out with friends or I just want to taste something, I'll eat. Like, oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Got it.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, well, we're gonna wrap it up, guys. Maddie, what's coming up on your channel?
I have a new video up. It went up on Sunday. It's talking about, I get real snarky about one-way speed of light and why that doesn't actually matter for distant starlight problems for young creationists.
But you do pretend that we can measure the speed of light, which we can't anymore.
That's true. You're right. Anyway.
Still a good video. I liked it.
So there's that, and then I've got a few pseudoscience debunking videos pre-recorded to go up, probably on Saturdays. And that's going to be my release schedule and the type of content I'm releasing from now until after baby comes and I get my life and office back.
Nice.
And other than that, we should have Guns, Magic, and Steel with the big boss fight tomorrow. Hopefully,
I hope so too.
We've got the Mr. and Mrs. Gibbon. I'm not gonna run it if everybody can't be there because it's a big fight.
Well, right now, barring some disaster, I'm gonna be there.
Yeah. So barring insanity, everybody should be there. And I need to play some D&D. So D&D on tomorrow, 6 p.m. Central, on Cheshire Vic's channel. Here we go.
All right. Well, let's see. On this channel, the 23rd is going to be the second and final part of my look at God Rules video about dragons totally existed. You guys, trust me.
Dragons totally existed. Trust me.
I mean, he started off with using a book as a resource for his quote-unquote scientific description of dragons that also involved things like foxes, manticores, foxes with human
I liked
breasts.
That video. That was good.
Like elephants with no toes. All sorts of crazy stuff is in this, and it's like, this is a scientific description of a dragon from the 1700s. Okay, buddy. Sure.
Sure.
A pot-bellied, fork-tailed boa constrictor was also fun. That also had a weirdly human-looking face. Like, all sorts of nonsense. So that'll be fun. That'll be on the 24th. Or, sorry, no, the 23rd. The 25th currently is scheduled to be a Leaving Young Earth Creationism with a William D. Let's see. I am assuming that is still going forward. That is the last I heard from him. I did send him a message today to reconfirm. I haven't heard back as of this recording. So, look, Leaving Young Earth Creationism is like the least reliable thing I do. So if it doesn't happen, something else will happen. And if I don't hear back from him basically by like the 24th, I'm just going to schedule something. Let's see. The 28th should be Jackson with Jackson Wheat, talking about Charles Jackson, Dr.
Bad
Charles
Jackson.
Bad Jackson. Then the 30th is thing. There's definitely a thing, and I'm going to find out what that thing is, and I'm going to tell you about it. But I don't currently know what it is, and I'm just now actually filling time while I go to my YouTube studio so that I can click on my content button and then do this thing called like filter by visibility and then only put on unlisted and then scroll down to see what the next thing is. And what that thing is actually, yes, the pastor doesn't understand dogs about, so there's this pastor from Arizona, not actually all that far from me, probably about 4 hours from me, who went on this whole big thing about creationism in his church, and he basically understood nothing about science. And the reason I wanted to cover it is because I'm curious to know what, like, I'm relatively well plugged into, like, what is AIG saying? What is, CMI saying? What is the ICR saying? What is, like, people who do a lot of creationist advocacy on the internet, what are they saying? But what I don't know a whole lot of is what are people in the pews of a church that just happens to believe in younger creationism? Like, what are they getting? What are they hearing?
Yeah.
So I wanted to do a sermon on just some random church that was about that. So I found that. That's what we're going to do. That's going to be
I'm going to tease you for a second because you just misspoke. You said you want to do a sermon.
Oh, well, yeah. You know what? I could do a sermon.
You could do a sermon. You could do it. You could do a younger creationism sermon.
Absolutely. All right, but that's going to be like a 4-part series. I already do have the super edit of it done, and it comes out to like 2 hours and 15 minutes. So, I mean, it's going to be quite a thing. So that's going to start on the 30th. And then on the 2nd, we'll do something.
Nice.
Yeah. July 2nd, we'll
also,
do something.
Top Hats Off Power Rangers?
Yes, that will be on the... the actual thing is the 29th. The 30th is Top Hats Off Power Rangers. Hopefully we will be definitely playing because last time I canceled because it was just too hot for me to stream. I did not want to sit at my computer because my AC broke. It is fixed now. But yeah. Hopefully we will be rescuing the White Ranger who is currently MIA. And there you go. So I think that is basically it, guys. Thank you very much. We got to 47 drinks. Which I'm going to start keeping track of now to see if we can like beat the record or whatever. And, maybe we'll have milestones. I don't know. I haven't really decided. But yeah, 47 is where we are. That's way, by the way, I created this counter system to count deaths in Dark Souls for my birthday. I only got to 6 deaths on Dark Souls in a 2-hour stream. But I've 47 drinks on this one, so hey, you know what? It's less than once every 2 minutes. So there you go.
Yeah.
This is the new baseline. 47 is our current baseline.
Okay. Brilliant.
For those of you who are curious, the Klingon says "Armatlupat," which just means how many times have we drank.
Ah, nice.
It's also drank intentionally. It has the sense of like we decided to drink, we drank, and then we finished the drink. So yeah, because Klingon has an optional intentionality marking per aspect, but whatever. Guys, thank you very much. I'm going to play the outro because if I don't soon, I'm just going to keep on rambling about random stuff. So yeah, here are the end credits. Thanks for watching, but before you go, I just want to say a special thank you to my channel members and my patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Work in Progress, Benthoven, Cynically Skeptic, Denny5252, Ian Chen, John Ackerman, Chris Love, Landon Knoll, Yepetus, Mabbity Babbity, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bede, and Patrick Dennis. As you probably know, YouTube is a very volatile platform, and from month to month, my income on the as it is, and perhaps even improving. If you'd like to join this team, there are links below to join the channel or in the description to join the Patreon. The Patreon starts as low as $1 a month, and the channel memberships start as low as $1.99 a month. On Patreon, you can even get a discount for pledging annually. If you do decide to pledge, you'll get access to an exclusive Discord server just for channel supporters, as well as early access to all of my pre-recorded videos, often up to 2 months in advance,
Higher tiers will unlock even better perks. Now, if an annual or monthly pledge isn't right for you, but you still want to support the channel, there is a merch store down in the description, as well as an Amazon wishlist, just for me. And if financial support isn't something you can or want to do, then if you still want to help out the channel, please just like and share these videos and make sure you comment on them. It really helps the channel out. Thanks again for watching.